Yeah, and Indigenous Australians are writing to me to tell me there is no such thing as a voice. There are, hundreds and hundreds of Indigenous voices, yet the government is asking a question of Australians at a referendum, which we just said will permanently divide us, but that division already exists. I just want to repeat that point that you've made. If there's a yes vote, there will be a race-based entity, which according to the Indigenous Voice report to the Australian government, which I have ploughed through, would require that, quote, government officials engage, that's on your screen, government officials engage in partnerships across government and portfolios, partnerships, and with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So they become a partnership with government. It's in the document. And, quote, the National Voice, this is in the document, would provide the mechanism to ensure Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have a direct say on any national laws, policy and programs affecting them. Well, of course, that's interest rates, that's social welfare, it's the education curriculum, it's a housing policy, which affects them and affects everybody else. But other Australians don't get a direct say, Daniel.
That's right. It's a critical point that you make. It will affect every area of policy, because Indigenous Australians are Australians just like you and I are. So the issue here is that every single policy will be subject to an effective veto power by this voice. And I just want to touch on another important observation that you made, which is that there is no one single Indigenous voice, just as there is no one single non-Indigenous voice, just as there is no one single migrant voice or Indian community voice or Chinese community voice. We're all individuals. We all can receive expression of our views as individuals. And by the way, this is an important point which goes to the nature of our democracy based on the seats that we have. It doesn't matter what the colour of your skin is, what your race is, what your religion is. The idea is that you can have a member of parliament that represents common interests across the community, whether that's to do with jobs, whether it's to do with education or health or infrastructure. It's the representation of common interests across our diverse community. The Voice to Parliament challenges that very idea.
Yes, I just want to finish here with a very significant point that you have made in the letter that accompanied that video to parliamentarians. Daniel Wild wrote this: to suggest, as some have, that we cannot make up our minds about the voice until there are more details is to concede that there are details which would make constitutionally enshrined racial division acceptable or desirable. In other words, Daniel, the voice is wrong in principle.
The voice is wrong in principle. It is ethically and morally wrong to divide our nation by race. This is why we don't need to wait for details, because there are no details that make the voice okay. Absolutely, we must do everything we can as a community and our governments to address the significant disadvantage in Indigenous communities, but you don't do that by having a separate race-based body in our constitution. And this is why it's so important that the coalition opposes the voice as a matter of principle, because we're all equal and there are no details that makes it okay to divide us.
Absolutely. And just final point then, the other sentence which resonates in that letter, and you just alluded to it about being all equal, Daniel is saying simply this: in saying no to the voice, Australians are saying yes to racial equality.